kind of created my own little like return to sport checklist for like soccer players specifically, with the idea being of just trying to break down sport stuff as many ways as we do all of our gym stuff. Like we have so many tiny little nuance, progression in order to scale up. So by the time you're doing Nordics and squats, you feel super comfortable because you've done all of these things before. A lot of times people don't have that with the sports stuff. It's like go run, jog, do a few cuts. All right, jump in and see how it goes.
Not that I want a bunch of people to tear their ACLs so I can get the experience, but you know, it is our job.
Absolutely. It is like you said, it's not something that you want people to be doing, but it's honestly like I got into this specific space like kind of by accident of just like people kind of reaching out and like just it's kind of like a fun puzzle to solve and stuff like that. It's a little bit more engaging, at least for me, than like just trying to get people to jump a couple inches higher and all that stuff. So it is something that's very, very prevalent now that people are not getting the help that they need. So it's something that you can have a really, really big impact.
As far as like what you're taking somebody through in phases as they're going through, you know, what does that kind of look like from, you know, week 1, month 1 to like middle of the, you know, just kind of how are you progressing somebody? Well, I see you do different, like, you know, you're obviously working into step ups at some point. You're getting them into split squats. You're getting them into squats on the slant. I see you use a lot of floss bands. I see your stuff. I see you take people through these brutal sled workouts. Yeah. So I guess I'm just curious if you could break down, if you'd be willing to break down a little bit of what that looks like.
Of course. I'm going to do my best to have it be like, aha, there we go.
There we go. Well, what's up, Great. Brother? Good to see you, man.
You too, man. You too. Let me know if you can like kind of hear me okay as everything goes. I lost my headphones the other day, so if I need to, I can go inside. But trying to steal a little bit of outside time while we can.
Most definitely, man. No, you're good. I can hear you just fine. You're good.
Beautiful. What's
good to see you. How you feeling, man? I know. Didn't you get a little injury while you were on your trip?
Yeah. We kind of separated my shoulder a little bit at the AC joint snowboarding. It's not too bad, so it doesn't need surgery or anything like that. And we're mostly back. I can move it around. It's just weak still, so just working on getting that back. But we'll be all right. Nothing too crazy. Just
that's good, man. You just took a hard fall.
Yeah, fell right on top of it, like if you were gonna like roll, and I just smacked. It felt great, and it sucked because it was so icy when we were there. We had no snow, which was unfortunate. So yeah, everything was super icy though. All the falls were unforgiving to say the least.
For sure, man. Where were you? Were in Colorado?
I was in Montana.
Montana. Okay.
Yeah, I was up at Big Sky up there, which I'd heard a ton of good things about. We just got kind of unlucky with like the timing of it. So definitely want to go back. But yeah, I'm actually gonna be moving out to Colorado in like 2 weeks.
I literally just heard that. Chris told me. Chris Page had texted. Yeah, he's like, dude, I think I'm going to hang out with Zach this weekend. Like, he's moving. I'm like, oh, dude, that's crazy. Yeah.
Literally, I'm going to be moving out to Denver, which is also crazy because I literally just found out yesterday that the gym that I was pretty much told I was going to be able to train at, I'm not going to be able to now. So we're going to have to figure out that whole situation. Yeah, that was kind of a kick in the nuts. So yeah, we'll figure that out. But all the more reason to have the online stuff going. So
Yeah. I was just going to say, do you do a lot of your business online?
Yeah. It's probably 50-50, 60-40 online. And I'd like to get that up to at least revenue wise, like 80-20, even higher than that, maybe. And I just have like the in-person stuff that I can do just like a bonus. Can you hear that leaf blower? Is that super loud?
You're good. I can hear you fine. You're good.
Okay. Perfect. And yeah, if you don't mind me recording, just figured if we're going to chat for an hour, I might have a couple of golden nuggets in there that might be worth kind of hanging on to. So whenever you're ready, dude, if you want to dive into it, let me know what I can help you with.
For sure. Yeah. So number one, I watched your podcast with the whatever the soccer podcast was that you just did. So that was super helpful. I feel like I got a ton out of that. It at least gave me, you know, listening to the things that you were talking about gave me the confidence to go, okay, I think I have a pretty good grasp on what it is that you do, but obviously better to ask the questions directly than just watch a podcast. So essentially the reason that this got sparked for me is that I have a buddy. So I trained him over the summer. Now I only got to work with him for about maybe 8 weeks in total. It was longer than that, like on the calendar, but in terms of the amount of time that we were actually like in the gym together with, you know, there were a couple vacations that fell in the space and whatever. He's a pro basketball player. So Yeah. So he came to me, he worked with me for like 8 weeks, super strong, very, very like athletically gifted guy, right? And made incredible gains while he was here, but then goes off for his second year of ball. He's playing overseas and had a little, like a tiny, I wouldn't say tiny, at least somewhat of a tweak of his knee within the first like month. And then had to like kind of be out for a couple weeks or whatever to rehab that. Which I helped him with that. Like I sent him some stuff and was like, here, be working on these things, whatever. Well, then he goes back, and I don't know, it might have been a month in, maybe less, and he just completely blew his ACL. So he, and I think it was the opposite leg. So gets a partial, I think what he said was it was a partial tear, tore the meniscus, and broke his tibia, all three in one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Non-contact?
So, yeah, non-contact. Yeah. So, well, sort. I mean, it was the way that he explained it was he was like driving really hard at full speed, and either he was going up for a shot or he was going to kick out a pass, and their arms got tangled, and it threw him off balance. He took a really hard, awkward step with his leg extended, and he's like, it almost kind of like hyper extended and twisted, and just everything went. So of course I'm like, well, dang, dude, like now he just came home, like he just flew back from overseas. He's going to have surgery and go through that whole process. And then my hope is to be able to work with him to help him get this back. Right.
Yeah.
But I have not had to take anybody through post, ACL surgery, like protocol. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, I listened to a lot of what you talked about on the podcast, but I guess I'm curious, and I will have like some specific questions as we go, but I guess I'm curious, like how you determine certain things as far as like when you're first starting someone out, like how soon do you take them after surgery? How long do you typically expect that process to be, or is that just varying from person to person and stuff like that? Like I'm just trying to get at least some kind of a framework or a blueprint in my mind of what this process could look like. What's a realistic timetable for a guy to go from this type of an injury back to playing his sport? Because obviously his goal is he wants to return to play pro basketball. It's his living, right? And I want to help him do that. So I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on kind of how you go about that process of determining some of those things.
Yeah, dude. So first off, I'd be curious of what his surgery is going to look like. So if it was a partial ACL, are they going to repair that or leave that alone? And with the meniscus, are they going to suture that with a stitch, or are they going to shave that like a meniscectomy where they just shave off a piece? Do you know that off the top of your head?
No.
Okay. Because so I would guess there's like, I don't know how severe, like 80%, 20%, how severe the ACL is. If it's partial, there's a good chance they might just leave it. The meniscus is the one that will have the bigger impact on the early stage. So if they stitch it, he's got like 4 to 6 weeks guaranteed crutches, like little to no weight bearing, like very, very little stuff that they can do. If they just shave it, he can start getting into stuff much quicker. So depending on what the surgery looks like with that will determine a little bit what that initial phase looks like. The breaking of the tibia is interesting as well. Because I'll be curious if that's something like that needs to be repaired like surgically or things like that. So I'll go into some kind of thoughts, but when you can find out more like exactly what's going on surgery wise, let me know all of that, and then it can go like can kind of revisit this and like get into a little bit more like specifics with that.
Yep.
The typically post ACL, I'll usually work with guys around the 2 to 3 month mark. And that depends on just kind of what their situation is like, what kind of rehab setup they have. I've gone earlier. I've gone all the way as like 4 weeks, like a month post-op. That was almost kind of an accident. But that was just like a miscommunication on timelines. But that was actually with one of my pro soccer guys. And so he came in still like the big ass cyborg knee brace. Like it was kind of funny because it was the earliest I'd ever worked with somebody. And his agent walks in behind him in like a suit. like, fuck. Like, I was like, I hope we don't mess this up. Like,
Yeah.
so it was ended up going really well. So like with him, what we did is we had one of those like S drive treadmills. So like basically like the ATG, the non-motorized one. We threw
Yeah.
him on there, and we did sets of 2 minutes, and we did like calves and tip. We did like 5 rounds of that, like 30 minutes. Absolutely blasted him, and he felt great. No pain, no discomfort. It was only the backwards stuff. And then we would slowly start to introduce some loading on the good leg, because you can get a little bit of cross training. So like especially we did some like the deep ATG split squats, but with the good leg, just to get a little bit of like neurological adaptation. But so in terms of getting started with him, the things that will determine that are going to be, yeah, what's that surgery look like? Because that will give us an idea of how soon we can go. And then what is his rehab look like? Does he have somebody that he's doing that with through the clinic? Are they any good? Like, and so kind of feeling that out, because that's usually the biggest determinant for when I start with people of what's your PT look like? Is it going fantastic? Then you can ride that a little bit longer. Go 2 months, go 3 months. Are you 3 weeks in and it's already feeling like a waste of time? Then maybe we start around that 4, 5, 6 week mark. So we start a little bit sooner. That's usually the biggest determinant for me. One of the big markers that I like them to get with PT is to get that extension. So if they can get that knee in full extension, that's very, very helpful, because a lot of that will be more of like the manual stuff, the at-home stuff that they will do. And then we will kind of slowly start working into our stuff, the backward sled, the step ups, the flexion, all of those good things. In terms of timelines, 9 months for an ACL seems to be a pretty solid timeline. A lot of research is saying like 9 to 12 now. I'm typically looking at like 8 to 9 with a lot of the guys that I work with, depending on the status they come in at and the timeline that they come in at. But I've even had some guys who were pretty behind schedule. So I had a soccer kid who was ACL meniscus. Really, we came to me at the 4-month mark, really struggling, had no flexion, all of these different things. And we actually got him back like the 8-month mark. So we were still able to get back like a little ahead of schedule. So doing this kind of stuff, you can speed up that timeline a little bit. Knowing when's his, so if is he in season right now? So I'm assuming the rest of his season is done. So when would like preseason next year start? Do you know?
Yeah, I think overseas they usually kick off in about September, so about 9 months.
Okay.
So it'd be borderline, because I don't think he's had surgery. If he has had surgery, it would have been in the last 2 days, because I just haven't talked to him in the last couple of days. I don't think he's had the surgery yet. So my assumption would be, if it's 9 months, he's pushing right up to about the time, because I think he got signed in like late August this past summer, like re-signed, and then shipped off maybe in like the middle of September or something. Yeah.
And so then that would probably be a conversation worth having with him, because the 8-month kid, he was the same way. He was like, states for like state championship for high school soccer is on this date, which was like 8 months. And I'm like, looking at you now, I'm like, we'll give it or it's going to be tight. Like, we'll give it a go. But if that's the goal, then we're really going to have to like get after things from the jump. And so just having that conversation with him of like, look, like 8.5, 9 months, like it's not impossible, but it's very, very tight. We're going to have to be dialed. We're going to have to go straight from the jump, like all in terms of like kind of commitment, energy, and everything like that. And then I'm also like, it's not something I'm going to guarantee. Like we're going to do our best, and you're going to have a better chance with me than you are with anybody else. Like that kind of deal.
Right
there. That would probably be a good conversation, just to like kind of set expectations, and that little bit of pressure can sometimes help them kind of go through that sort of thing. So then, happy to go into like as many kind of like specifics, protocols, whatever. But if whatever kind of questions you got, like, kind of go for it.
Yeah, actually, this isn't protocol. This is more of a question of how you've handled this. I think I've seen on your page, but I could be wrong. Have you had athletes that have come and done this with you and then got re-injured? And how have you handled that? Has that ever happened?
Kind of. I've only had a couple that have been re-injured. 2 of them finished too early, like just they kind of couldn't finish the thing, like financials, whatever. I'm like, you're probably not ready, and they're like, it is what it is, and they went back and they got hurt. And I was like, fuck. I had one other football kid who kind of got re-injured, but he was also like, we were training, like his brothers were also training together, so we weren't doing as much kind of specific knee stuff. So I've been kind of fortunate where I really haven't had many guys like kind of go off, get re-injured. The only ones that I have are kind of like the situation that you have, where like we've done some training, but like it's not like we're like have like a full body of work that we've done,
Right.
and they've gone and got injured. So yeah, I'm just curious. Where's your head out when you're asking that? Is that more of like that kind of guilty trainer
Yeah.
feeling? I know the feeling with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
I
I
know.
mean, it's like as soon as you hear, obviously I can understand, like from my perspective, it's not hard to like wrap my head around the fact that, hey, dude, like we only trained together for like 6 to 8 weeks, which is nothing. We're barely scratching the surface. And yeah, you made progress. And he came in with a few little things that he was dealing with, some Achilles issues and stuff. He was good going back. But of course, there's like that part in the back of my head that's like, is he now concerned? Like, bro, I trained with you for 6 to 8 weeks to be stronger and to have healthier knees. And then I go away and I have 2 knee injuries in the course of, 2 months or whatever. And one of them being a pretty major injury. So then it's like, I mean, the truth is, I don't actually know whether or not he'll actually come back to me. He may not. But
Okay.
I'm just doing my due diligence on the front side, because in my mind, this is something that I want to help people with regardless.
Yeah.
So even if it's not him, I have a lot of rapport with a lot of college athletes. So I'm like, this is something that probably won't be, this won't be the first, this is the first time, but it probably won't be the last time that I have or see this happen. So yeah, I guess I was just curious, like, obviously I know as a trainer, I never make any guarantees either. It's not like I can't guarantee you that you're never going to get hurt again. I can't guarantee you that if you go through a 9 month intensive training program with me, that means you'll never have another injury in your life. That's not realistic. But I do want to be able to say, and I feel confident even now saying, if you train with me, I know that it's going to be better than if you just go do PT and then try to figure this out on your own. Like I know that for sure. So yeah, was just curious if you had dealt with any of that before, like having people get re-injured, and then how do you kind of deal with some of that?
Yeah, I have had a few. And it is tough. It's an awkward situation because like you said, like we're doing our best, and like especially with like we're in that injury reduction prevention space.
Yeah.
But like I said, there are no guarantees. So it is like it's one of those of like even if we're doing the best that we can, sometimes you can just kind of get unlucky. I'm more sympathetic too for ones that are like I would count your guys as a little bit more of like a contact one of like just things being weird and stuff like that. Those are even like a little bit trickier. If he was coming in with stuff before, the biggest thing for me for you to kind of like I guess take heart with that would be, so you did say you're not 100% sure if he's coming back, but it sounds like you're having that conversation with him, like things are going that way. The goal is that if he's gonna come back and do with that with you, like that's to me the biggest like vote of confidence more than anything else.
Right.
And you could even have that conversation with him like once things get going and stuff like that of like, look, dude, I know we've of like where you're coming from of like just because this knowing that you feel bad about it, even if it's like, look, I know we did everything we can in a short window, like it's still just like kind of eating at me, like that lets him know more than anything that you'd like that you care and give a shit, because like
Right.
that's gonna would be worth more than anything, and that will also give him a chance to most likely be like, look, dude, I get it, like I don't blame you, like it's gonna feel better for you hearing it from him more than anybody else. And
Yeah.
so like
Yeah.
first and foremost of like if he actually decides to do this with you, that's a bigger vote of confidence than anything else. Like that's telling you that he trusts you, he believes in you, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That would be worth more than anything.
Yeah, for sure, man. No, I agree. Yeah, so I guess like I would be curious. Like, I listened to the podcast, but as far as like what you're taking somebody through in phases as they're going through, what does that kind of look like from, you know, week one, month one to like middle of the, just kind of how are you progressing somebody? And obviously, I know that some of that's going to be person to person, depending on how they how they're adapting and recovering and all that kind of stuff, how consistent they are. Mind you, this guy who we're talking about, my buddy, he is he's one of those special dudes. Like, he's got that. He played Division 1 his first 2 years, and then he transferred to a Division 2. And in his final 2 years of college was Division 2 All-American. So like, he's a leader. He's got the mentality. Like, he's 20. I think he's like 24, 25. The guy is like top notch, right? Like, he's a super, super high level dude. So there's no doubt in my mind, it will never be a question of commitment on his side. Like, he'll be back and ready to go. So I guess I'm just curious though, what does that kind of look like when you get someone in the gym on day one? You already talked a little bit about, like, you might put somebody on and do them in 2-minute circuits of like backwards walking and maybe some calf and tib raises and things like that. Is there anything more that you do with someone there? I watch your videos, right? So I see you do stuff with people. I see you do different, like, you're obviously working into step ups at some point. You're getting them into split squats. You're getting them into squats on the slant. I see you use a lot of floss bands. I see your stuff. I see you take people through these brutal sled workouts. Yeah. So I guess I'm just curious if you'd be willing to break down a little bit of what that looks like.
Of course. I'm going to do my best to have it be like coherent, because it can kind of get like scattered. So rein me in if we need to. So I'll go kind of like big picture, like thought process first, and then can kind of get into some of the nitty gritty. So the way that I think about it is, with like the ATG movements, we kind of have a flow of going kind of like blood flow circulation with stuff like the sled, to like strength muscle mass with things like the step up, to more like joint health, mobility, internal connective stuff with long range. And so I kind of look at those three and almost take some of those concepts as like training phases. And so this will depend a little bit on the timeline that they come in. For somebody that's earlier with like your guy, like that soccer guy that I was telling you about, in the beginning, because so like we want level 3, we want to do as much stuff like kind of deep range, high load, joint, internal connective tissue as we can, but we're unable to do that in the beginning. So then we can kind of regress, do more like kind of strength muscle mass, build the strength there. But then even in the beginning, we kind of need to undercut that with the blood flow stuff. So that's what my emphasis is in the beginning. Can we get as much blood flow circulation as we possibly can? So we'll smash the sled, we'll smash calves and tibs. If tolerated, we'll go to step ups and that sort of things, like fairly low range of motion, high rep, 20, 30, 50 rep sets of things like step ups, like smashing them on that. With the goal being just to get as much circulation with as little load as possible. So just kind of take that away. Can we just, really improve that circulation piece? And we can do that daily. So like on my remote protocol that I have where I'm not getting guys in the gym, the first thing that we'll have them do is 5-6 days a week, 5 minutes straight on the treadmill, or like the sled treadmill, calves, tibs, 4 rounds, max reps of step ups on like a 2-inch box, and then like a little like couch stretch at the end. But like the daily repetition of that as well. And so that can be something that we can get into, of like, if you have your guy coming in every single day versus like a couple days with you, a couple days on his own, but that daily like work can be super, super effective. And so that's a good intro point right there, to get as much, just again, of that kind of like blood flow and circulation piece. And so
can you hold on? Can you pause for 1 second? So you were saying you will do with your guys, you'll go like the daily 5 to 6 days a week. They're doing 5 minutes backwards on the sled, or I'm assuming you use treadmill to do dead mill. Okay. And then what was the other part you said? Like doing tib, like calf tib work?
Yeah. So there's actually 2 ways. Another one that might actually work even better is the rotation that I was telling you about with my soccer guy, of do like 2 minutes on the sled or the treadmill, like max effort, sprinter calves, so like the straight leg ones, the FHL calves, and tibs, 20 to 30 rep, go until it's hard, do like 5 rounds of that. That might be an even better one. I do it the other way in the protocol just for like accessibility. of
Yeah.
just easier, like if they're in a commercial gym, not with me, it's just easier to go through that way. But that might be an even better protocol. Then once they've done that, 3 to 4 rounds of our Poliquin step ups could go all
Mm.
the way flat ground, could go 2 inch, like very small elevation. If they even want to use like hands for support, balance, doesn't matter to me at all. Max reps, 20, 30, 40, 50, somewhere in that neighborhood. I like if they can get more than 30 in a row, increase the elevation by an inch or two. But just trying to pump that as much as they can. It's really just the goal of everything in that initial phase is to get things on fire. Like I tell them, like, you want to be able to feel things as much as you can. One of the things with surgery is it's that neurological inhibition of stuff is like switched off. They have a hard time contracting the muscle. And so we just want to get them to feel things as much as they can. And so that's a protocol they could run through daily for 1 week, 2 weeks, like that'd probably be plenty. But just to really kind of get that switched on.
Yep.
And then, so the thought process there is, so we've got those 3 categories, right? Of like blood flow, strength and muscle mass, and kind of joint stuff. And so with that, we're trying to attack the blood flow piece hard. And then as they start to tolerate it, and this is where you kind of feel this out as you go, we can start to access the other, like the one below it.
Yep.
So the step up ones are going to start to build that strength and muscle mass piece as well. So as they tolerate, we can start to increase the elevation. And that like kind of 15 to 25 rep range is a real like sweet spot I like, where we want to try and max that out every time you can. We can increase the elevation, increase the elevation, increase the elevation. And so now we're starting to touch that strength and muscle mass piece, starting to push that a little bit harder. And then as we're touching, or as we're working that, then we're starting to get into like access of like the long range stuff. So like maybe in a workout, I'm going to push the sled hard, and just maybe touch the step ups. And then maybe if they can tolerate, just very gently touch the split squats or something like that, the deep range stuff. As they progress, still hitting the sled hard. Now we're hitting the step ups hard. Now can we just start to get access into the deep range stuff? So I literally think about it like access of like tons of support, floss bands, high range, like high elevation. Can we just start to get the knee to bend? Can we just gently start to open that up? And then we challenge that with repetition, with blood flow, with fire. And then we challenge that with strength. And so it's the same idea for the step ups of, can we challenge that with blood flow first, super, super high reps? Then can we challenge that with strength, which I would say more by elevation first and then load. So I love that 6, especially for a basketball guy, get them up to 8 inch on the Poliquins and the Petersons. I love the Petersons even more than the Patrick. And then same thing with the split squats. Can we get access first? Then can we challenge that with reps? And then can we challenge that with weight? And so, yeah, I've skipped the access part with the step up. So yeah, but can we just get access first? Can we do it without any pain? Then can we challenge it? And then can we load it? And so that's the kind of progression that I think about. And it's weird because like, so in phases, they kind of blend to each other. So
they overlap. Yeah.
Exactly. So if it's like blood flow in these first, or blood flow, even strength stuff in the shorter range movements, then it's access in the long range movements. Then by the time we get to strength in the short range movements, it's now blood flow in the long range movements. And that's the kind of progression of like, it scales from blood flow to strength endurance, we'll say, to strength. But then it scales from sled to step up to long range. And yeah, they're staggered. So just like you said, so I was really hoping you would get that because I didn't think I could explain it well, but that's probably like the key thing is like that like sliding scale. And so you can fit them in. And so that's where it comes back to wherever you can get your guy of, he may be able to jump straight into blood flow or like high repetition on the step ups, depending on the timeline that you get him on. But it's just like kind of fitting him in there and then progressing from there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. The overlap is actually really, that helps a lot. That makes a ton of sense. So yeah, because I think that was one of the things I was trying to process is like, how soon are you trying to get somebody, and I like the terminology you use, to be able to access a movement. So obviously not even being able to come in and do something, at some super high level, but even just to be able to access us. How do you get someone who's had a full or whatever, any type of ACL reconstruction, how do you get them to even access that type of a knee bend, like on a split squat or a squat, right? So, but that makes sense, like following through that progression of like access, then, you know, building up tolerance or blood flow, then adding strength, and how those overlap from sled, you know, whatever, sled, treadmill into step up into split squat. Now, one we haven't talked about, when do you start getting into, because I know hamstring work has to be a big thing too. You know, when do you start getting into, obviously you're not going to throw someone into a Nordic that's coming off of an ACL, not right away, obviously, but how do you even, what do you use as a stepping stone to access something like that?
Yeah. So just the one last piece on that, I think you know that already, but just the order of that in a session too also makes things super helpful. So when we're looking to access the split squat, like, you know, like smashing the sleds, smashing the step ups, and then from that access point, using a shit ton of elevate or use shit ton of support. Like I'll cue people to do dips on plyo boxes, and that's where the especially if he struggles with range of motion, the floss bands are super super helpful for that. And one last thing too, for like a meniscus specifically, those tend to be a lot trickier from a pain standpoint. So all of this, the kind of umbrella philosophy over all of that is, for me, like I'm really trying to get everything pain free. Like I'll tolerate a 1 or a 2 out of 10 sometimes, but even with that, I want it to be getting better as the set progresses. And so that's, the floss bands are super super helpful for that. But the meniscus, because it is more of like that cushion or that shock, that one will be a little bit trickier from that pain standpoint. A lot of times you'll have to kind of poke and prod a little bit. Like that one will flare up more, like way more than people who just have pure ACL. So just keeping that in mind, that might be something that you have to kind of finesse with just like a little bit more.
Well, the good and the bad news is that I have a slight tear in my medial meniscus. So I did that like 8 weeks ago, and I've been rehabbing. Yeah. So I've been having to do my own kind of process of rehab and figure out what works. And you are 100% correct. It's such an irritating. Yeah, it's so irritating because it's like, I mean, yesterday was a perfect example. Like, and it's just my own. And I know you'll appreciate this, like as an athlete, the competitiveness in me, I'm not competing against anybody else, just against myself, right? But like I have a tendency to want to rush things. Like just for me, now I don't necessarily do that with clients. With clients, I actually probably err more on the really cautious side. But for myself, I'm always like, oh, I feel good. So now let me go ahead and try this thing that's probably skipping like 4 steps. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, okay. You know, so yesterday, like I hadn't done really any, you know, even any heavy weighted like back squats yet, you know, but my knee's been feeling great. I'm back to like pretty much full range of motion. I'm getting through full range in my split squats. My step ups feel good. Everything feels good. And so then yesterday I'm like, cool, let me just like try throwing 185 on the bar and squatting, which is not crazy heavy. You know, that's in my mind, I'm processing like, well, that's not that bad. That's easy. And, you know, I did a couple reps, but I was like, yeah, that felt like garbage. Like right away, I was like, that was not smart. Like I shouldn't have done that. And I'm fine. Like I'm not hurt today, but it is a constant, like, you know, it's crazy how just a little thing like that can cause so much irritation, like such a annoying injury, you know?
Yeah. And that is exactly how it is. Like most of the time in that process, it's like annoying. So yeah, you just have to flirt with that a little bit more. Extra sled, extra flossing. Yeah, just being mindful of that. From the hamstring stuff, it's a little weirder in terms of trying to think of what's short range and what's long range, just because of like the hip extension, knee flexion piece. But what tends to work for me is I like to think of the back extension as more short range than the Nordic. And so prepping with that has been very, very helpful for me. It's also, you get the benefit of, you get to work that extension a little bit as well. So like if in case that's not quite there, that one's very, very helpful. So high reps in a back extension, definitely a 45 way before a GHD. 2 feet, 20 reps, like getting to that solidly is a really, really good place. I do, especially in the beginning, also really overemphasize like the hip extension piece. So I'll have guys like tuck the chin, around the shoulders, like make sure they're really pulling from like glutes, hamstrings, very, very minimal engagement in the lower back at all. But I find that to be helpful of it's a way to get the blood flow piece to the hamstring. And then when I'm introducing Nordics, I'll do the back extensions first. So like the same way you do the step ups before the squats, high reps there. And then we'll go to the Nordic, and I'll just I'll regress that a shit ton. So usually having them lean forward a ton is the easiest way, because they can kind of catch themselves with their hands. Just start to introduce that, make sure that feels okay, and then just start to, they need to elevate the bench, lower that down. I really, really like the AirX pad, like the foam pad right in front of the knees. That just seems to feel like much more comfortable as well as also being a regression. So, and just starting to introduce that. In terms of timelines, around when we're starting to we don't have to really, really baby the split squats, it's usually a good time. So like I'll feel comfortable smashing the sled and step ups very early. Sled, step ups, calves, tibs, all of that good stuff. The deep bending and the hamstring stuff, I like you're kind of hinting at, I'm usually a little bit slower to introduce. Trying to think of actual timelines right now. Dude, right now I have this one football kid who's blowing my mind. He's freaking me out. Like the kid's like a freak. Like he's less than 3 months right now, and he looks like he's at 8. And he's like, keep going to his doctor of like, yo, can you clear me? Can you clear me? I'm trying to play volleyball. And I'm like, dude, fucking calm down. Like, this is awesome. But like, calm. And so he sent me a video of him last night after like going to the gym at like 9 p.m. Lights are off. Like it's fucking dark outside. And he's outside doing like little running and like cutting, like not like cutting drills, but like he's lining up like a wide receiver. And just doing little stuff. And like, he's just kind of putzing around, like going through the motions. But I'm like, God damn, A, how are you doing that? B, stop doing that. But like, but it's just to make the point that the like timelines are hard. So it's more of just kind of where they're at from like an intensity standpoint. But yeah, like once they're starting to be able to, like, even if they're still supporting themselves, that's fine. But like the split squat's not like the most agonizing, horrible thing for them. That's usually when I'll start introducing the back extensions. And then as that starts to become more comfortable, then I'll go to the Nordics. The only caveat is, especially since he is a basketball guy, if they do repair the ACL and if they do use a hamstring graft, sometimes just have to be a little bit more mindful. But that's usually a decent place to start.
Got it. Do you do anything outside of like, are you ever, well, I guess it wouldn't matter because for me, I don't have, I'm training out of a home gym, so I don't have access. I have a decent amount of stuff, but not like I don't have a hamstring curl machine or anything like that. But do you typically involve, or would you involve, I talked to Ben Clarefield one time and he was like, never this. But I was like, do you ever use the monkey foot for hamstring curls or anything?
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, never the monkey foot.
Yeah, I remember him saying that. And I know he is like hardcore obsessed with the hamstring curls too. The new gym that I'm at actually doesn't have one either. So I haven't been using those. What I will mess with sometimes is there's David Gray has this like kind of hamstring calf like isometric. It's like a foam roller bridge. So you're laying on your back, the very long lever one, knees almost straight, toes are on the foam roller, point the toes hard, and hips are just like a centimeter off the floor. Do that 2 feet, 60 seconds. Once that's easy, single leg, 60 seconds. And that's a good way to kind of undercut stuff as well. If you need to like regress even below the back extension, that's usually the way that I'll go. You can do banded hamstring stuff, high rep band stuff. For whatever reason, I tend not to. I haven't run into too many issues with there. Like most of the time when I've been able to introduce the back extension, it'll be hard, but not running into any like trouble with it in terms of like discomfort or having to troubleshoot stuff or things like that. Most of the time I've been able to go straight there. If you need a little extra, that foam roller bridge is a great one. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in the garage. And isometrics are also a great entry point if you need to undercut stuff even more.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my next questions. Was I've seen you do isometric work with people. Like, feel like I've seen you do like isometric low, like calf stuff, like, you know, up on the toes, a lot of that kind of like. Could you like share a little bit about what you're doing there? Because obviously that's outside. So like, just to give you a little bit of my back, I didn't go to school for this stuff. Like, most of this has been self-learned, like just by
Dude, trust me,
doing
that's
it.
better.
Yeah, well, that's some people say that, but then sometimes it's kind of like, I do like, I'm a music guy and I'm a self-taught musician too, and it's like, that's cool, right? Like, you can play a guitar because you taught yourself how to play a guitar, but there's also a benefit to understanding the underlying, the basics essentially. And I think that's where school or formal training can be helpful. Doesn't mean you can't learn that stuff. I could go learn this stuff on my own. But like some of these types of things where you start getting into the nitty gritty, I get the ATG system because I've been living it for 2 years now, right? Like, so I understand those progressions. Anything within that like that space, I'm like, I could coach that stuff in my sleep, right? But when you start getting outside of that, I'm less confident because I have less experience with it. So like things like that, like some of that isometric stuff, like what are you usually using? And you're using that as like a further regression from like a full, let's say a calf raise. Like, what are you using like for isometric work stuff there?
Yeah. So for the ankle stuff, honestly, all of the isometrics, I kind of it rotates in and out. Basically, it's not stuff that I'm like with all of my guys that I'll use as consistently. So keep that as like kind of like a caveat of like, it's definitely not something I think you need. I think it can be a nice bonus. The ankle stuff specifically comes from Cal Dietz and Chris Corfitz. It's their like spring ankle isometric series. If you want to look into that stuff. And I actually tend to use most of the isometrics except the hamstring stuff as maybe like a finisher. It's a nice way to help guys kind of feel like they're working. And you can just get some specific position specific strength. I think it just does good stuff for the foot and the ankle. I wouldn't substitute it for the calf raise stuff. Actually, it's not like a replacement. It's more of like end of a session. Let's get something where feel like you're working, like things like that. The lunge isometrics I like a lot for patella tendon issues. Potentially, depending on the way the guy broke his tibia, could be useful, but most likely he'll probably be okay with that if they're not going to repair the graft. Even if they do, he's a basketball guy, so they're probably not going to use patella tendon. So again, it's another one that you can use as like you get some like the co-contractions of like muscles firing, you get some of that shaking, which seems to be like a good thing. We don't know that for like 100%, but it just seems like it would be. There is one that I do like a little bit more. That's like a Bulgarian split squat isometric, where like back foot's on the bench. I do that on the ball of the foot, so like the heel floats, and then really kind of leaning forward a little bit. So very glute focused. Because that's probably one thing that just depending with how much stuff that we like, all the ATG stuff, how do we towards the later phases and things like that, like get into stuff that's a little bit more like quote unquote sports specific or stuff that's a little bit more athletic. And so like there's the few things that I do tend to sprinkle in are usually a little bit more hip focused, a little bit more glute focused. And so the way that I'll use most of those isometrics, the split squat and the lunge in particular, is I'll use them in the beginning, like some of the earlier stages, as like a capacity thing of like body weight. Can you go for like 3 minutes unbroken? And just because it seems like it's a good strength builder, mental challenge, does good things connective tissue wise. And then as you kind of get later on, I really like that split squat in particular, but like loaded heavy. So still an isometric, but take like a couple of dumbbells. Like you can get up to like half your body weight, your about 3/4 of your body weight total. And can you survive? Can you hold that position for like 30-40 seconds? It's like max weight for like 30 seconds, that kind of thing. You get like a nice like kind of strength piece with that. Again, the position specific strength. The only thing with all of those is making sure that like the setup, they're super dialed in, like make sure they feel at the right place, like make sure they can lock that position in before you load it. But yeah, I do like to sprinkle those in from time to time. The ankle isometrics, like I said, I'll maybe rotate through different ones at the end of a session. We'll just do it once, go until you can't. Once they can start to get like kind of 90 seconds fairly comfortably with the ankle stuff, then I kind of move away from it. You can load it like the other ones. It's just a little bit awkward to do. So like I find more benefit from just like loading a single leg calf raise of like be strict with the position, really stretch it at the bottom, hold that top for position for 2 seconds, load that for 8 to 10 reps. I find you'll get probably even more benefit out of that. So yeah, I like it as like an entry level, but then once you reach a certain threshold with it, it's kind of like, okay, you've gotten the majority, it's diminishing returns. You've gotten the majority of gains out of it that you can. The split squat ISO is one that I'll flirt with a little bit later on, but all of those are I more of like bonuses than requirements. Like if you can find a way to fit them in that makes sense, awesome. But I wouldn't worry about it too much or go like changing huge things to make them work.
Got it. Yep. Another question. When you talk about access into the split squat, so the access into the other moves makes sense to me. The access into the split squat, what are you typically starting somebody out at? Are you just focusing on them getting like, what are you using? Are you using pulses? Are you using holds? Like, what form of a split squat are you typically using for the initial access point?
Yeah. So again, it depends on their level, but I'll just go from like very, very beginning to like kind of later on, and you can kind of fit him in wherever he fits. Very, very beginning, I like shorter reps with longer holds in the bottom, and we'll use like a good 12-inch box. And I like either like a bar overhead you can like hang on, like really, really hang on, or plyo boxes next to you at a good height where again, like I'll literally cue guys like do a dip on the box, do a pull up on the bar. You should be able to lift your weight up. Like I only care about range of motion. And so we're just slowly going till they feel some of that tightness, that tension. Hold that 4 or 5 seconds. Exhaling is big for me when we're trying to gain access to. So making sure that they can try and yield, relax into that position. Shouldn't be holding their breath. Shouldn't be making faces. It means it's too tight. And then going back and forth. So like 5 sets, 5 reps, 5-second hold is a place that I'll start with them a lot. Being like, look, you've got 5 sets. Don't force it at all. The 5th set will be better than the first set if you're like gentle with it. And again, the floss bands are super, super helpful for these as well. Because they can help dampen down that pain signal, and they can help improve the range of motion, which are the two things that people tend to struggle with the most. The biggest thing, I'm sure you probably know it, but like we'll take it on and put it off each set, which is annoying. But but you got to take it on. And a way that I like to do that a lot is if we're going to do 5 sets, do the first one without it. Ooh, that doesn't feel amazing. Do the next 3 with it. Take it off for the last one. See what kind of range we've gained. It's a great way, like for like buy-in, was like every time that it'll be significantly less painful, significantly more range of motion. And again, like that's in those early stages too. That's one you could probably repeat daily. And if you do that, it's like that, it'll come very, very quickly. After that, I'll start to go a little bit lower, maybe like 4 to 6 inch range, something like that. Still using the support, but definitely less. I'll maybe introduce the wedge too, because it just can help leverage that forward a little bit. And then I'll start to work like higher reps with that. So even if they're supporting themselves, like we get that full range of motion and then a little bit more continuous, maybe like still want that exhale on the bottom, but maybe it's just a 1 or 2 second pause, 8, 10, 12 reps, something like that. And that fatigue towards the end, they'll almost start to sink into the bottom that little bit more. Can still floss it. That's totally fine. And then from there, the next phase, I'll switch it up a little bit, as much for variety as anything else. But I really like those pulses in the bottom, like those just kind of like quarter reps. And again, they can still use support. They can still use floss bands, but just like I'll start them in the bottom position. So make sure like they can kind of get access there, halfway, back in, halfway, back in. Just making sure the two things we're making sure is that they get squeezing that shut deep as they can in the bottom. And they're not bouncing. The press, don't bounce, press. Right. 15, 20 reps of that will get that on fire. So now we're starting to combine. We've kind of gotten some of the access, but now we're starting to get that blood flow piece in that bottom range. Would probably wait to introduce that until they're pretty comfortable with the range of motion from that previous style. So they don't necessarily need to be strong in it yet, but to be able to have fairly good access where they can get most of the way, maybe some tightness, but nothing too much painful. After that, then I'll probably start to load it a little bit and be a little bit stricter with like tempos and with postures. So that's when I'll start to cue guys. I really like to, with the split squats, start to get them contracting the antagonist a little bit. So we're going to load that. We're going to be very deliberate, like trying to pull yourself into the bottom. If it's the right leg we're working on, can you flex the right tib? Can you flex the left glute and like pull, hold 1, 2, explode out, control, control, pull, squeeze those 2, explode out. 5, 6, 8 reps tops, really working that tempo, like trying to have them get this to treat this more like a strength movement. If they can load it, awesome. And then you're kind of off to the races. Then you can go in a bunch of different directions with stuff. You can load it more, you can play with more pulses, things like that. But something of like that kind of progression. The pulses one is probably the one that if you wanted to play with stuff or like not do, that's probably the one you could take out. That's really just for like variety, but it's really that's low reps, long holds, very gentle into maybe higher reps, and then taking that away into like either something that's gonna be a little bit more metabolic somehow, and then starting to load that a little bit. That was a little bit all over, but does that flow kind of like make sense? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Makes perfect sense, man. And then from there, so two questions. Number one, would be interested to know when you start to introduce actual squats. Actually, I have multiple questions. Are you training both legs equally on the split squat? Like, even though you've got one leg that's completely damaged, obviously, and the other one is healthy, are you keeping them at the same level for the sake of, is that a yes? You do?
Yeah. Always
Okay.
start with the injured leg and match it. Same with the step ups and match it with
Always.
the good leg. So
Got it.
the whatever you can do, don't exceed that. If you want to get an extra set on the injured leg at the end, maybe you do 5 and 4. I'm fine with that. But yeah, it's the alternate. But yeah, just match what you can do on that one. The only exception being is if you got somebody like super, super early, like still in that cyborg brace, and I'll train the other one hard, the good one hard, just to get some cross training. But that's a small, like that's a minor one.
Yep, got it.
Yeah.
And then when are you you starting to transition them into squats?
I'll tend to do those very similarly, like timeline wise. A lot of time. So in the earlier they are, the less that they can do, the more I'll go through the entire flow in a single session of like sled, step up, split squat, squat. As they progress, they need less of the entry one to be able to get into. So I'll maybe do like sled, step up, split squat, different step up, squat. So like I'll tend to introduce them at fairly similar times. I'll introduce the split squat a little bit sooner to help get the access. But then really once you've gotten through that, probably like even just that initial phase of that 5x5, 5 seconds, like things aren't terrible. I'm progressing the squats the exact same way as the split squats. The same thought process, using the floss bands, using those like higher reps and everything like that. And so then just depending on your schedule and how they respond, you could either do split squat, squat the same day, or you could kind of alternate them depending on if they're twice a week, 3 times a week training schedule. But I'll do them at very, very similar times. The progression is very similar. I love the pulses with the squats as well, probably even more than the split squats. So I'll probably, here's maybe a better way to think about it. I'll try and do access with the split squats maybe a little bit sooner. But the squats, I feel like are a little bit easier to go from that like blood flow metabolic standpoint, just because they're a little bit less technical. Everyone can do the squat pulses once they can do them. The split squat ones, they'll fuck up for a long time, just more moving parts, all sorts of stuff. And then strength, I'll kind of progress them both at the same time. I have been playing a lot more with the hack squat too, which I've been really, really liking. So just the floating heels, no squat or no slant board. Been liking that one a lot too. So just to mix in that kind of variation with there. But very similar, if that answers that.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think like big question, and I know this, I'm assuming this would be different for everybody. What is your determining factor? Like, what are you aiming for to see in somebody before you would confidently say to them, you're ready to go back to your sport? Now, obviously, like part of that is going to be, and you talked a little bit about this in the podcast too. There's a difference between, obviously they have to go out and get back skill wise. Like they got to go out and get comfortable on the pitch or on the court or whatever their sport is. But what are you looking for in terms of what you're doing with them before you would feel confident? Because obviously, like you could go, well, yeah, it's just an 8-month process or a 9-month process. But what if they get to 8 or 9 months? What are the checkpoints that you're looking for before you would clear somebody to say, yeah, I feel comfortable with you going back to playing?
Yeah. So I've been working on this a little bit more because, to be honest, the majority of what I've done so far has been very subjective or like feel based for me. I haven't had as many hard criteria as I would actually like to. So it's something that I'm working on more. What I've been doing so far is, as we're getting into the process, we're trying to reintroduce field stuff, like movement stuff, typically on their own, and then also like sports skill stuff on their own. One of the things that I think has been helpful with that is I kind of created my own little like return to sport checklist for like soccer players specifically, with the idea being of just trying to break down sport stuff as many ways as we do all of our gym stuff. Like we have so many tiny little nuance progression in order to scale up. So by the time you're doing Nordics and squats, you feel super comfortable because you've done all of these things before. A lot of times people don't have that with the sports stuff. It's like go run, jog, do a few cuts. All right, jump in and see how it goes. And so trying to give them as many progressions, like for my soccer guys, I'll have them do just technical stuff on their own, like just moving around with the ball, some like cutting stuff with the ball, stuff with a partner, stuff with small groups, like possession, team training where it's within your own thing, and then like kind of here. And so just trying to give them as many layers as we can, because it's as much about you're stacking the little wins and you're building the confidence with each one. So each jump that you're asking them to do is small enough where they feel comfortable with it, where it's not, okay, I've gone and like done some shooting drills and like I feel comfortable like doing threes around the arc. Now go play 5-a-side. But like, can we give them as many boom, boom, boom there? And so when I do it like that, a lot of it almost comes from them. I've had more times that I can count now, guys telling me that they played like just on their own. They're like, yo, I played yesterday. I'm like, fucking okay. Like, how'd it feel? So, like, so far that's been working. That's been working fairly well. What I am still trying to quantify more of, like, because I would still like to have more stuff like that. And so some of the things that I'm looking for I want first of all, I want everything to be pain-free, very, very comfortably, like really squeeze in range of motion, everything like that. Everything should feel super, super solid. Range of motion should be super, super solid between sides, should really look basically symmetrical. Muscle mass should look pretty much symmetrical. Like I want your legs looking the same. And then in terms of movements and stuff like that, I want Nordics to be excellent. I really don't care about the way up too much, but I want like you to be rock solid in the very bottom, really being able to hold that. I want us to be able to squat with some decent weight. If I maybe even just half body weight for reps, it'd be like, again, really solid, some tempo on a slant board. I really like the high rep Peterson step ups. So I've been liking 25 reps on an 8-inch box. You can use your hand against like a railing for like just for balance. I don't like the balance piece as much with the Petersons. And so I'll kind of fuck with them on the tempo with that too, like getting rid of the pause at the top. So it's like slow, explode. And I'm like, as they're going, I'm cueing them like jump, catch yourself, and this continuous thing, super, super metabolic. I find Peterson one in particular, just because of being on the ball of the foot, has really good carryover to like more of the athletic side of things, running, jumping. As they progress, they feel way more comfortable when you're just trying to jog and do things. After that, you can load that one as well. Split squats, I would like to look really, so basically like I want them to look competent on all of the movements. I don't have strong standards of like, you need to be able to hit X percentage of body weight. Those are nice, but I want like our big movements, our Poliquin and Peterson step up, I want us to be able to do at probably an 8-inch elevation, really solid for reps, maybe a little bit of weight with the Poliquins, high reps for the Petersons. The split squat and the squat, I want us to look super, super solid, probably be able to take a little bit of weight in there, again, for a little bit of reps. Single leg back extension and Nordic, I would want to look super, super strong on those. Those are probably like my big 6. And I know it's a little bit subjective with that, but I'd feel fairly confident if they look good on all of those and they're progressing well with all of those other things. They're feeling great on the court, no soreness, feeling good, like moving around. That's when I'd probably feel good to be like, yeah, kind of go for it. But again, like just to kind of come back with that, a lot of times it's the way that I'm doing it. A lot of times it's coming from them, which I almost kind of like relying on them to be like, look, because as much of it's going to be mental as it is physical. Yeah. And so when they can go out there and be like, yep, felt solid, felt good to go. Cool. You're good to go. Like that's relying on that more than anything.
Yep. Got it. That's awesome, man. That's super helpful. I feel like I have a pretty good general overview. More than general. I mean, Thank you for digging into some of the details too, man. That's super helpful. Obviously, I know every person will be different and every situation will be different. And some of it's just getting experience. I just,
Yeah.
not that I want a bunch of people to tear their ACLs so I can get the experience, but it is our job. So I'll take it. But dude, I appreciate it, man. I won't take up any more of your time, but man, I really do. I appreciate you sharing so much information. It's super helpful.
Absolutely. It is like you said, it's not something that you want people to be doing, but it's honestly like I got into this specific space like kind of by accident of just like people kind of reaching out and like just it's kind of like a fun puzzle to solve and stuff like that. It's a little bit more engaging, at least for me, than like just trying to get people to jump a couple inches higher and all that stuff. So it is something that's very, very prevalent now that people are not getting the help that they need. So it's something that you can have a really, really big impact. The last couple of things I wanted to leave you with, just a couple of more like tips, tricks, nuances, especially for your guy being more of a pro guy on a timeline of like with guys like that. Like I kind of jokingly talk about of like the kitchen sink protocol of like everything we can possibly throw at you to get you moving as quickly as we can. One is like the daily walking outside, especially in the beginning stages of that barefoot backwards in the grass. If that's something that they can get accessible, I try and have them do that every single day, 10 minutes a day. They get their feet in the grass, they get some sun. The backward stuff is just great just for kind of lubricating the joint, but having that as like a daily habit, typically like away from the workout is like a supplement there. Again, like one of those little things that goes a long way. Again, also in the early stages, the sauna, if that's something that they can get access into immediately post-training, like post-workout, 20 minutes or so is awesome. Or like once a week, like the Huberman protocol, like 30 minutes in, 5 minutes out, 30 minutes in, like sucks, but you get a huge like growth hormone response. Just going to help everything in terms of trying to regrow new tissue. And then there's a supplement protocol that I really, really like. Actually comes from Design for Sport, that same brand that like Clearfield is a big fan of. They have a bundle called the Athlete Stack. And what they have the collagen protein with that. They have a hydration packet, which has a high dose vitamin C. And it has a multivitamin, which has the fish oil. And so the vitamin C collagen taken as like a pre-workout and like a shaker, like 30 minutes before training. A lot of really good research on that for specifically like collagen protein synthesis. So they use that with a lot of guys like tendinopathies, like holes in their tendon, trying to regrow that and doing that before training. Really, really effective. And then just the fish oil is like a daily one, just helps as like an anti-inflammatory, helps to like kind of remove inflammation. But that's one that can be very, very helpful. Again, trying to do stuff daily, taking that right before training can just one of those things that just that extra kind of 1% kind of deal, just helping to move the needle. I think those are the big three. Yeah. Sauna, the walking, and the supplement protocol. The supplement protocol in particular, I'm a big fan of. So I definitely recommend putting him that way.
For sure. Yeah. That's great, man. I do actually, if you don't mind, one other question. So when you're structuring this for these people, are you typically, how many times are you seeing them in person a week?
2 to 3 usually.
Okay.
And that's honestly typically more of a like just feasibility cost factor than in like an ideal setting. If this was like a pro guy on like a contract with like a timeline, like we'd probably do all 5 of those sessions to in person, face to face, and I'd be sending him stuff to do on the outside, the backwards walking, all of that stuff. But as they get later on as well, and we can start to ramp up like the intensity of each session, like 3 hard sessions, even 2 to 3 hard sessions, plus like 2 more like kind of accessory sessions tends to work fairly well as well. So it kind of depends on just where they're at, how much they can tolerate.
Yeah, but you're doing 5 days a week.
Tip is my in-person people, not always. Usually it's more like 2 to 3. Occasionally,
but you're giving them stuff to do on their own.
Not always.
Oh, okay.
A couple of them ask for it and stuff like that. My in-person guys, a lot of them, it's really just whenever I see them in the gym 2 to 3 times. Sometimes they're doing a little bit extra. It's honestly my online stuff is probably more structured even than like the in-person. Typically 2 to 3.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I don't have, I mean, that's all new to me as well. Like I've not had anybody come to me online yet with like major ACL stuff. I mean, I've had people come to me and be like, hey, I'm 6 months post and I'm still in pain type of stuff. For sure I've seen that. And I have different, like, I don't know how you do your online stuff, but I do mine. I have different options. Like I have the kind of ATG model where it's like, hey, you can pay $50 a month. And I have these kind of pre-written standard programs that I will still coach your form and give you tips. But then I have like a more like, hey, if you are looking to hit specific goals and you want to, then I obviously write out full programs, design them specifically for those people. So yeah. Okay. So, but that's helpful too. Cause in the past, he trained with me 3 days a week. He would come 3 times a week. And again, that's the hard part with a pro athlete is they only have this long of an off season. You know what I mean? It's like, they've got like, for him, he had like 2.5 months really. And it falls in the middle of the summer. He plays overseas, so he's also home seeing his family. There's like a lot of other stuff that's going on. So it's very, very hard to like get consistent.
Yeah.
You're trying to squeeze as much into a 2.5 month window as possible, but you ultimately end up getting, I mean, we might have gotten like 6 to 8 good weeks of training. And some of that was even broken up, like, cause there were trips that were falling in between there and stuff. So it was like, we'd train for 3-4 weeks really well, then we'd miss a week and then we'd train for, so it was kind of like all over the place, but.
And so
I'm hoping if you
like 3 times a week would probably be plenty. Go like, depending on when you get them, but like go hard 3 times, give him some homework to do 2 to 3 times as well, like smaller stuff that he could do on his own. Or even more just like high rep stuff. Yeah. Like just to give him a little bit of homework and then, just have that conversation with him of like he said from the beginning of like, look, dude, like we're working against the clock here. Like this, like time is not on your side. Like this has to be dialed. Like we have to be here. Like there's no time for breaks, taking weeks off, like everything like that. Like if you want to be ready to go by season date, the only way that's going to happen is if we are locked in timeline wise and everything like that, and just be straight up and have that conversation with them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and this is like the balance of like, I don't want to scare the crap out of the dude. I don't want to discourage him. But even listening to what you said in the podcast about something like 50% of athletes who injure an ACL never go back to the same level they were. And what'd you say? Of the 50 that do, there's another 50% that are going to re-tear or tear the other knee. Is that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's insane, dude. Like I was actually just going to send him your podcast and be like, hey, dude, like, I just want you to hear this. Like this isn't like, I'm not making this up and I'm not just doing this because I really want to train you. Like I genuinely want to help you and not see you be one of these people who end up with another injury which is also why I asked the question at the beginning, how has that happened to you? Like, have you had someone follow through consistently on the entire protocol, go back at an appropriate time and ever get re-injured? You know what I mean? Because that's obviously the worst nightmare for every trainer is like, you don't want to take someone through this program that's supposed to help them and then have them get hurt again. So,
and that's one of like my biggest selling points is like, I've got essentially none that's happened to. Like I've got worked through like close to like probably 60 guys now at this point. And I tell people this in like the sales call, like that have gone through, and of the ones that have gone through that entire thing, like we haven't had a single one that's gotten hurt or injured the other one yet. And so like compare that to the 25% success rate of like standard stuff. Like, it's night and day.
It's crazy. It's crazy, man. Well, dude, again, I really appreciate you, man. Thanks for, okay, and you're recording this. Is there a way for you to send me this? Because I would love to
let you know. Yeah, I'll send you the whole thing.
Perfect. That'd be awesome. And then where do I pay you? How would you prefer? I'll pay you however you want. It's up to you.
I'll send you like a Venmo link or something like that. Whatever.
Perfect. That sounds good, man. I appreciate you, man. It was super, super helpful. Super valuable stuff.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to. Yeah, it was a great conversation and good to, happy to help any way that I can. Let me know, like we talked about in the beginning of like when you know a few more of the details about surgery, basically like dates and kind of what he's actually doing with that. And yes, to keep me posted with how he's going. Send me some updates sometimes. If there's anything else I can help you with, let me know. Like, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to talk about this stuff till the cows come home.
Love it, man. Well, dude, when is you're moving in a couple weeks?
Yeah, dude, like next Friday is going to be probably my last day in the gym here. I'm probably going to try and sneak over to Clearwater because do you see that Clearfield's just like randomly coming down here to do like
No.
yeah, he posted something in the Pulse, just like a quick little message like 2 days ago of like, hey, I'm going to be at the ATG headquarters doing like a squat seminar like next Thursday or next Saturday. Fucking okay.
Man.
Like, so I'll be there
Yeah.
for that. And then I'll probably like kind of peace out afterwards. So, yeah.
That's great, man. I love that, dude. Well, all the best to you in the move, man. Hope everything goes well.
Thank you. Thank you. Me too. Yeah. Still some things to figure out, but we will make it work. We'll make the best of it.
For sure, man. All right, dude. I appreciate you, man.
My pleasure, dude. Chat soon. All right, bro.
See you, man.
See you, brother.